Welcome back to Thriving Ivy. If you are new here, we talk about elegance, emotional mastery, and building a life of value. Today, I want to discuss about betrayal, why we cheat on those we love. It is the singular, most destructive event in a relationship. It triggers the same centers in the brain as physical torture. It can cause PTSD symptoms that last for decades. Betrayal, infidelity, cheating, whatever you call it, the question that haunts the victim is always the same. Why? Is it biology? Is it a character flaw? Is it a symptom of a dying relationship? Or is it something much more complex? To answer this, we drew from established findings in psychology. Today, we aren't just looking at the symptoms. We are performing an autopsy on the human heart. This is the science of why betrayal happens. To understand betrayal, we first have to look at the machinery running the show. For decades, evolutionary psychologists like Dr. David Buss have argued that humans have a dual mating strategy. On one hand, we crave security, the long-term bond that ensures survival and child-rearing. On the other, we are wired for novelty. This is often referred to as the Coolidge Effect in biology, a phenomenon seen in nearly every mammal species where a male exhibits renewed sexual interest whenever a new female is introduced, even after cessation of sex with prior partners. When you fall in love, your brain is flooded with dopamine and norepinephrine. It triggers a chemical high in the brain. As a relationship matures, usually between 18 months to 3 years, those chemicals fade, replaced by oxytocin and vasopressin, the cuddle hormones. For some, this transition feels like falling out of love. Betrayal, biologically speaking, is often an unconscious attempt to hack the brain's reward system to get that dopamine hit back. Now, does this mean my genes made me do it? Absolutely not. Biology is a blueprint, not a command. We have a prefrontal cortex designed to override impulses, but it explains why the temptation exists even in happy marriages. The brain is fighting a war between the comfort of the known and the thrill of the new. Dr. John Gottman, perhaps the world's leading researcher on marital stability, argues that betrayal doesn't start in the bedroom. It starts in what he calls sliding door moments. Imagine your partner sighs heavily. You have a choice. Turn toward, ask what's wrong, turn away, ignore them, and keep scrolling on your phone. Gottman's research shows that when partners habitually turn away, they create a regret metric. They begin to rewrite the history of the relationship. They start focusing on what is missing rather than what is present. This is the negative sentiment override. Once this state is reached, the partner becomes the enemy. The betrayer starts comparing their partner to hypothetical others. If I was with her, she'd listen to me. If I was with him, he wouldn't be so tired. This is where the late Dr. Shirley Glass's research on windows and walls comes in. In a healthy relationship, there is a window between the couple and a wall around them protecting the relationship. Betrayal flips this. The betrayer builds a wall of secrecy against their partner and opens a window of intimacy to someone else. It starts as just friends, just a work spouse, until the emotional intimacy surpasses the physical boundaries. We cannot talk about betrayal without talking about attachment theory. Research indicates a strong correlation between insecure attachment styles and infidelity, the avoidant betrayer. They cheat to create distance. Intimacy feels suffocating. When a relationship gets too real, too vulnerable, they use a third party as a spacer, a way to dilute the intensity of the primary bond. The anxious betrayer, they cheat to seek reassurance. They feel an emptiness, a hunger that one person cannot fill. If their partner doesn't text back instantly, they panic. They seek validation elsewhere to prove they are lovable. This is a subconscious reenactment of childhood wounds. The betrayal isn't about the partner, it's about regulating the betrayer's own internal anxiety. But what about the people who are happy, the ones who love their spouses, have good lives and still cheat? This is where the conversation gets uncomfortable. Psychotherapist Esther Perel introduced a revolutionary idea. Sometimes we don't cheat because we are looking for another person. We are looking for another version of ourselves. Long-term relationships require us to be responsible. Parents, breadwinners, caretakers. We lose touch with the parts of us that are reckless, playful, and selfish. The affair is an antidote to death. It makes the betrayer feel alive. As Perel says, it isn't that we want to leave the person we are with, it's that we want to leave the person we have become. In this context, betrayal is an identity crisis masquerading as a romance. It is a selfish, desperate grab for lost youth or lost potential. We also have to look at the environment. We are living in the era of micro-cheating and infinite opportunity. Research validates the slippery slope theory. In the past, having an affair required significant logistical effort. Today, an affair can begin with a fire emoji reaction to an Instagram story. The internet provides what psychologists call accessible anonymity. You can be anyone online. You can curate a version of yourself that has no flaws, no bills, and no crying children. It is a fantasy world, and when you compare a fantasy to the messy reality of a marriage, reality loses every time. So why does betrayal happen? It's because our biology craves dopamine. We build walls of resentment instead of windows of connection. We are trying to soothe childhood attachment wounds, and we are grieving our own lost identities. Does understanding the why excuse the what? No. Betrayal is a violation of the fundamental contract of love, but understanding the mechanism is the only way to safeguard against it. Fidelity is not a lack of temptation. Fidelity is a discipline. It is the conscious decision made thousands of times a day to turn toward your partner rather than turning away. There is a specific silence that follows the discovery of betrayal. It is not a quiet silence, it is a deafening one. It is the sound of a reality fracturing. In one moment, the past you thought you knew, the memories, the laughter, the shared glances, is rewritten. The person you slept beside becomes a stranger, and terrifyingly, you become a stranger to yourself. You are likely here because you are standing in the wreckage. You are asking, how do I move forward when the ground beneath me is gone? Society tells us to move on. It tells us to forgive and forget, or conversely, to burn it all down in a rage. But neither of these are strategies. They are reactions. Moving forward is not a reaction. It is an architectural process. It is the slow, deliberate act of rebuilding a self that can never be broken in the same way again. This is not a guide on how to save your relationship, nor is it a guide on how to end it. This is a guide on how to save you. This is the physiology, the psychology, and the philosophy of healing. First, we must validate the physical reality of what you are enduring. You are not being dramatic. You are not weak. You are in withdrawal. Neuroscience confirms that romantic rejection and betrayal stimulate the same pathways in the brain as physical pain. When you look at a photo of the person who betrayed you, the anterior cingulate cortex, the region that registers physical distress, lights up. You are quite literally injured. Furthermore, your bond with a long-term partner is regulated by oxytocin and dopamine. When that bond is severed or threatened, your dopamine levels crash, while cortisol, the stress hormone, spikes. This chemical storm puts your body into a state of survival. You cannot eat, you cannot sleep, you shake, you obsess. This is trauma-induced hypervigilance. Your brain is scanning for threats. It is replaying every conversation, every text message, every suspicious moment from the last 10 years, looking for clues it missed. This is not insanity. This is your brain trying to make sense of a nonsensical event. It is trying to protect you from being blindsided again. Accept this state. Do not fight the sleeplessness with anger. Treat it with compassion. Your body is grieving. Treat yourself as you would a patient in recovery. Hydrate, rest, even if you cannot sleep. This physical siege will pass, but only if you stop judging yourself for enduring it. Once the shock subsides, the obsession begins. The detective work, the scouring of social media, the endless questions. Why her? Why him? Was I not enough? Was I too boring, too old, too difficult? You believe that if you can find the answer, you will find peace. If you can understand the logic of the betrayal, you can control it. Here is the hardest truth you will learn in this process. There is often no satisfying why. Betrayal is rarely a commentary on the inadequacy of the betrayed. It is almost always a commentary on the inadequacy of the betrayer. It is a symptom of their inability to communicate, their need for external validation, their emotional immaturity, or their avoidance of intimacy. When you obsess over the why, you are essentially trying to learn the rules of a game that the other person was cheating at. You are looking for logic in chaos. To move forward, you must surrender the need to understand them and pivot to understanding yourself. The question is not, why did they do this to me? The question is, what do I need right now to feel safe in my own skin? In the immediate aftermath, you may still be living with the betrayer. You may be co-parenting. You may be untangling finances. You are forced to interact with the source of your pain. This is where we apply the principle of emotional mastery. You cannot control their actions. You cannot control their gaslighting, their defensive anger, or their trickle truth confessions, but you can control your reception of it. We utilize a technique known as the gray rock method. You become uninteresting, you become impenetrable, you become a gray rock. When they attempt to provoke you, you offer no fuel. They say, you're overreacting. You respond, I hear your perspective, and you walk away. This is not passivity. This is the ultimate act of power. By refusing to engage in the drama, you are conserving your energy. You are drawing a boundary that says, my emotions are a privilege and you no longer have access to them. Elegance is not about wearing fine clothes. It is about refusal. The refusal to descend into the mud. The refusal to let someone else's lack of character dictate your emotional state. You maintain your dignity, not for them, but for the person you see in the mirror. There is a seductive comfort in the role of the victim. The victim is blameless. The victim is righteous. And for a time, you must be the victim. You were wronged, but you cannot build a house on the foundation of victimhood. If you stay there too long, your identity becomes fused with your pain. You become the woman who was cheated on. You tell the story to your friends over and over, refining the details, keeping the wound fresh. Moving forward requires a narrative shift. You are not just a person to whom something happened. You are a person who is responding to what happened. Start to observe your own story. When you speak about the betrayal, do you sound helpless or do you sound like someone who is waking up? The betrayal did not kill you. It woke you up. It shattered the illusion of a safety that never existed, which is terrifying, but it also shattered the chains that held you in a state of blindness. You are now seeing reality clearly, and in clarity there is power. Reclaiming the lost self. This is the most exciting and painful part of the work. Who were you before you were a we? Long-term relationships, especially those involving marriage and children, require a degree of self-erasure. We compromise, we soften our edges to fit into the puzzle of the partnership. We adopt their hobbies, their friends, their schedule. The betrayal has burned down the structure of the we. Amidst the ashes, you will find artifacts of the person you used to be. Perhaps there was a writer in you who stopped writing, a traveler who stopped exploring, a sensual, vibrant woman who was convinced she was invisible. Moving forward is an act of archaeology. Dig her up, dust her off. What did she like to eat? What music did she listen to when no one was around? What were her ambitions before she became a supporting character in someone else's life? Take yourself on dates. Buy the flowers you wish they had bought you. Read the books that stimulate your mind. This is not just a distraction, it is a reclamation. You are filling the void left by their betrayal with the substance of your own soul. The myth of closure. You are waiting for an apology that may never come. Or you have received an apology that feels hollow. You are waiting for closure. Closure is a myth invented by storytellers to make endings feel safe. Real life rarely offers closure. Real life offers change. Do not wait for them to acknowledge your pain in order to heal. If your healing is dependent on their realization, you are still in the relationship. You are still tethered to their approval. True closure is the moment you realize you no longer care what they think. It is the moment their opinion of you becomes irrelevant. It is the moment you stop waiting for them to fix what they broke and you pick up the glue yourself. The journey forward is not a straight line. It is a spiral. You will have days where you feel strong and days where a song on the radio brings you to your knees. This is not failure. This is processing. You are currently in the dark, but you are not buried. You are planted. What grows from this soil will be different from what was there before. It will be stronger. It will be more discerning. It will be less tolerant of disrespect and more protective of its own peace. The betrayal was the earthquake. But you are the architect, and the house you build next, it will have windows that open only to those who deserve the view, and it will have walls that cannot be breached by those who do not know the value of what lies within. Breathe, you are still here, and you are just beginning. Thank you for spending your time with me today. If you enjoyed this, please like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.